guys, what's going on? Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Rana Show. Today, I have the pleasure of having Arpita from The Little Things Arpita. What's going on?
Thanks for really having me here.
Thank you for joining me. You're down from the Philly area, right?
I am, yep. Currently Cherry Hill, but Philly
Okay.
yes.
South Jersey. I used to go to South Jersey all the time.
Where in South Jersey?
Back in the day, back in my high school days, I had some friends who used to live out in Cherry Hill. I have a story. I stole my dad's car, right? Yeah. And at that point, we had no cell phones. So I took my dad's car and I took my two friends. We went down to Cherry Hill to go meet up with some friends. Okay, we went to go meet up with some girls. And my dad's been calling me. He was trying to find out exactly where I am. No phone calls at that point, right? I came back home and I didn't realize it was like an hour and 45-minute drive.
From where?
From Piscataway.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it was a lot of just me time on the drive here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bad. I'm glad to be here. Glad to make it up here.
I'm glad you could join me.
Yeah.
You said
how did that turn out though? Did you meet up with the girls?
Yeah, we met up with the girls, but my dad got my afterwards. He's like, "What's wrong with you? Yeah. You know, how am I supposed to get in touch with you?"
Right.
And all that good things. I think I had a beeper at that time. And I know he was beeping me.
Yeah.
It was Smart Beep. Remember Smart Beep?
I do.
Back in the day?
Yep, and you're just ignoring it.
Yeah, I was just ignoring it. I was like okay.
Cool.
I had to do something, right?
Right.
You said that when you were driving up, you had some me time, right?
I did.
How do you deal with that? Because, you know, as an event planner, plus you're a mom.
Yes.
And you're a wife. You're a mom of two. Mm-hmm. And you're also a 9-to-5er as well.
I wouldn't call it 9-to-5er, but yes, I do have a full-time job.
You're busy.
That's an understatement. Busy's good though. I feel like busy is not a bad problem to have because I feel like that's what energizes me and a lot of people that I surround myself with. So I have different parts of my life where I get to be different versions of myself in a way.
Okay.
So the event planning is my creative side.
Nice.
And then the startup that I'm at is my creative side, but also it's more in compliance. So I'm able to show my regimented developing processes, etc. side.
Nice.
Then my mom's side is my fun side, which I guess is debatable on who you ask.
I was going to ask you that.
And then there's the wife side. So there's a lot of different sides of me, and I like to make sure I have ways to show them all to stay sane, if that makes sense.
Staying sane. So being busy with all these different things, how do you stay sane?
A lot of time management.
Okay.
And I think just not a lot of sleep, because sleep is a waste of time.
It's a waste of time.
Well, it
depends on who you ask, right?
Yes.
I love my sleep.
I love sleep, but I feel like I wake up and take notes on my phone because I just had an idea. Do you find yourself doing that?
I do that all the time.
Right.
I use the voice recording options.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much easier because like as you're typing, your mind is still going, right? So now you're going to go in two different avenues at this point, right? So once it's a voice recorder, you just keep on talking and you can just do whatever you want and just save it and you come back to it at the end of the day and you implement it. I mean, it's the whole process with it, but it works for me.
That's a good idea. I feel like my husband would wake up and be really annoyed with me if I started just talking.
Like, who are you talking to?
Yeah. Who are you talking to? Why do you have to do this at 3 a.m?
It happens.
I like that. I like that idea. But I feel like with people whose minds are always on the go, like yourself, you have to have the notes or a notepad or a phone or something next to you.
100%.
Just jot it down, because I think one time I remember hearing this thing where you can only remember 7 things at a time. And I forget if that's the right number, but you can only remember a certain amount of things at a time. Okay. So you have to write down everything else, or you're not going to remember.
You're going to forget everything.
And I think the reason it was 7 was because that's why there's 7 digits to a phone number.
Interesting.
Because that's something that you're going to remember.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Right? Yeah.
Always learning different things. I didn't think it was 7, but 7 with the phone numbers. That makes a lot of sense. And that number 7, I mean, that goes into a lot of other things as well, right?
Like, is it like creating a habit and things like that?
In 7 days? Isn't it 21 days?
Yes, no, you're right. 21 days. And you have to do it consecutive.
You got to do it every single day for 21 days. It could be eating healthy. It could be going to the gym. It could be like martial arts,
right,
anything in the world, right?
yep.
But 21 days, you got to go through it, and then it becomes part of your lifestyle.
Correct. I wish it was that easy. It's just so much
It's not.
easier said than done.
100%.
I found myself this morning thinking about working out, for example.
Yeah.
I was like, how am I supposed to do this consecutively when there's no routine to my life right now with
Yeah.
2 little ones? But just if I could get those 21 days in a row and just make it a thing, then
Yeah.
it's not an excuse.
How old are they?
My daughter, she's going to be 4 in December.
Okay.
And my son is going to be 1 next week.
Ah, happy early birthday to your son.
Thank you. We made it. We made it the first year. Which it's been something.
4 and 1. So you definitely have your hands full.
Yeah, I have both hands full.
Nice. And you work from home, I'm assuming, yeah?
Hybrid. So we go in from time to time, meet people face to face. I love the people that I work with. So it's really nice to go in and talk to them. I feel like face to face sometimes has a lot of value with conversations you might not have in that scheduled virtual meeting.
100%.
So we go in, shoot the
yeah,
and
it's okay. You can say shit.
and just get to know each other, but also have very collaborative meetings.
Yeah, it's more of a personal level at that point, right? Like I feel like with after ever since COVID came into play and everything is Zoom, everything is online, and you have that screen in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. And that kills the personal sense. Right. I mean, the one-on-one, it destroys it.
Yeah.
Like my girlfriend's a teacher, and during COVID, she hated it. She despised it. Like in the beginning, everybody always had a good time with a drink in one hand and you're doing whatever you're doing, right? But you lose the connection, especially with your students at that point, right? Because as a teacher, you're trying to connect.
Right. What age group or what grade does she teach?
She teaches juniors and seniors.
Oh, that's difficult. Yeah. Especially
English lit.
Wow.
And composition.
Yes. Did she mandate video being on?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. 100%. There's no point. 100%. Like every time during that time when I used to speak to my clients, right? Because during COVID time as a DJ at that point, all the events got canceled, so you had to reschedule and all that good stuff. And I also put my hat in the ring as an event planner. So I started to get clients calling me to plan events. But it was different, right? Because I was so used to making house calls. I was so used to the clients coming to my office and that one-on-one, that energy, that vibe, it was all there, right? So it was like less things were said, right? It was just like the body language, the conversation just kind of flowed, and it was fantastic. But when Zoom came into play and the video chats came into play, you had to work extra hard. You had to work extra hard to convey that simple message, right? And even till this day, like I speak to a couple of my clients and they're all about the Zoom. Like, let's jump on. I'm like, that's fine, but I'm also willing to make my way to you guys.
Right.
You can come to my office. I can come to you, whatever's convenient. Because with that block in the middle, I mean, you can't connect 100%. It's so difficult.
It is. The biggest part of what we do is building relationships. And to ensure that their day goes smooth, it's really understanding them beyond just words. Yeah. It's understanding what makes them tick. And those are things that you don't get through a video call.
100%.
Yeah. I think maybe the momentum will pick up where we will do more in person, but I think it's something we'll have to push and just kind of recommend it more and say, hey, let's meet for coffee at least and do this meeting over coffee, for example.
100%. I'm a strong believer in that.
Yeah.
Like we could have the phone call, right? A quick introduction, but I definitely want to see you, shake your hand, give me a hug, right? We'll have some coffee. We'll just talk about your event. And that way everything's out on the table, right? Because the thing is, I feel like behind the scenes, like once you're behind the screen, it's all facts.
Yeah.
Jay, I want this, and that.
Right. It's very process driven.
There you go. There's like a little structure to it. The structure is going to be there eventually as an event planner because you got to follow a blueprint, right? But that personal touch, it goes out the window. How do you deal with that?
So a couple different ways. Relationship is what we really strive for before the big day. And well, there's the walkthrough, for example, which that's the time that we meet the couple, and we'll not meet them, but we see them and their families for the most part, and really get to know them. But we really try to communicate as much as we can. And the vetting process is really the first step of where it starts, where we get to understand our personalities going to mesh. And as we kind of understand our personalities mixed with what our team can offer, that's how we can understand what the couple needs to then how will we connect. And that's how we kind of talk to them about, well, how do you prefer to communicate? And then we would suggest, do you want to do coffee? Can we do meetings in person? WhatsApp? A lot of our clients, and what I've been finding recently, we've been gravitating towards people that are residents, for example, and they have no time whatsoever.
No time whatsoever.
So they are kind of relying on us to do the planning. With them, it's tough to meet in person. So we try to do a lot of text and jumping on calls when possible. But it's really, you just have to do what you can to be in front of them and communicate with them. And I think it's communication in any way possible. What about you? How do you kind of navigate around that?
I try to make myself available 24/7.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to.
All the time. Text me, call me, email me, whatever. I live on my phone. I live on my phone. That's my best friend.
Yeah.
Right. So I have clients texting me at midnight.
Yeah.
And it's fine. If I'm awake, most likely I will be awake. I'll reply back as soon as I can. Right. But don't ever stop the process of talking to me. Right.
Yeah.
Some people are like, Jay, I'm not going to bother you after 5 p.m. But that's the only time I'm going to have.
Yeah.
That's the only time you're going to have.
Right. I get a lot of sorry to bother you. I'm like, wait.
Exactly.
No, you're not bothering me.
I'm here for you. This is
what I'm here for.
Working for you at this point.
Right. So please don't start with sorry, ...
Yeah.
Don't say sorry. Just ask me.
Yeah.
Use me. Like communicate with me and I will be there.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I tell all my clients the same thing. Listen, I'm at your beck and call.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, you guys are paying me good money. You're paying me good money to do a job, which is great, but I'm at your beck and call. I'm working for you at this point.
Right.
So whatever you need, night and day, just let me know and I'll take care of it.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You said before that you meet with clients and you vibe with them and all that good stuff, right? You vet them.
Yeah.
Have you met clients that you couldn't vibe with?
Yeah. So it kind of goes into our process also. So we have a very streamlined process using project management tools, technology, etc. If that is something that can overwhelm a couple, I say, look, this might not be the right fit for you, because we like to go through in a way where we have a centralized portal, for example, and a way to communicate. Some people may not like that, may think that could be confusing, which, coming from more of like a startup technology background, I think project management tools are awesome. And that's the nerd in me really.
We talked about that before. We spoke a few months ago.
Right.
And you were talking about streamlining the whole event planning process.
Yes.
With actual tools.
Yep.
And intelligence out there, right?
Yes.
So how's that working out for you though?
I really like it. I think that's the short answer. But the long answer is I feel like it's really going to give me an opportunity to scale. Okay. And that's really what all this is about. Because I've been in weddings probably about 6 years, but I've been in events and coordinating those since like 2005, 2006.
Oh, it's been a minute.
Do you remember PhillyFest?
I remember PhillyFest.
PhillyFest. There was Garden State Gerba, Rockefeller Ross. I coordinated all those. I directed all of those. And that is really how I found my passion for events and helping coordinate that. And when weddings started, and I was a little younger, obviously we all were about 6 years ago. As I'm going through the whole process, I realized as I'm growing my team that life happens. Mm-hmm. Life happened to me. I had kids. Priorities change, schedule changes. Sure. I think that's a better way of putting it. Your schedule changes in terms of what you can and can't do. I have team members that are amazing, but life happens. So as we grow and bring on more people, I feel like having the right processes with technology that can replicate a process but customize it per wedding really helps you give the same experience in a way and add to it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. You think I feel like that's going to be more beneficial for like all the new brides coming in, right?
Right.
All the new brides who are super duper busy, right? And I feel like they want it to be quicker.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the attention span. I feel like if I can't capture your attention in, what's the word, like in 3 seconds?
Yeah, something like that.
Right?
Yeah.
I lose your focus and you're out the door, right?
Yeah. And I think a big part of it, though, is people have a hard time visualizing the end product.
Okay.
So by having this in front of them, I feel like right off the bat, instead of using words, I'm able to say, hey, look, this is your end product. Let's get from here to there, and here's the steps that I can take you there. But I think that's part of the whole like vetting to see how receptive somebody is of it.
Okay.
But then there's also the personality side of it. And that side is really key in knowing if it's going to be, well, one, stress-free for both ends. I mean, there's a level of stress in all weddings. Enjoyable from both ends. And there's definitely been times where you can sense that sometimes there might not be appreciation with...
Oh, how do you deal with that?
If it's in the vetting process, we say this might not be the right fit.
Gotcha.
And, you know, in the South Asian community, sometimes there's a perception of certain roles, for example, and how people want to treat people in certain roles. Yeah. And you can kind of tell how that's going to be when you first start talking to somebody.
Okay. Like it's their special day, it's their big day, and everything has to revolve around them at that point.
But in a degrading way.
Okay.
That's a way to put it.
Okay. You know what? It's funny you mentioned that, right? Because as a DJ and as an event planner, I feel like we're not respected in some form or fashion. Right. I was talking to my cousin a few weeks ago, and we started to DJ back in the day together, and he stopped. And the reason why he stopped was because he was telling me that every time a client came up to him, they were like degrading him, or there was no respect.
Right.
Well, I'm going to talk to you a certain way because you're just here to press play. I'm going to talk to you a certain way because you're the hired help at that point.
Right. That's the terminology.
And I feel like, first of all, that's bullshit, right? Because this whole event is not going to be what it's supposed to be without us.
Right.
You know, at that point. But guests don't really understand that. Yeah. I feel like parents also don't understand that. Yeah. The parents of the bride and the groom, because they're so old school, I want to say, right? A little bit, not that much, but
to a certain extent.
Yeah, there you go, to a certain extent. But like, you can talk to them over and over again and tell them about all your experiences, tell them about how their day is going to go to the T, right? You have a whole blueprint, you're going to follow it. Should there be any mishaps, you'll be on top of it. They won't see anything, right? All the things that can go wrong will go wrong, but they'll never know anything about it, right? But I feel like the level of respect is not there.
Right.
To an extent.
Right. To an extent. I couldn't have said that better myself.
How do you deal with that?
You just have to, right? You just have to. I think that's part of the job where there will be
That's a tough job.
It's a very tough job. And I think it's underrated in the sense where people don't really understand the extent of it. Yeah. So, like, for example, as a planner coordinator, you help with the flow of the day and getting it all together. But then there's certain vendors that help with putting all the pieces together. So I think the best example I would have is a caterer. Okay. A planner / coordinator can make sure the caterer is there on time, knows the schedule, knows when the food should be out. The planner coordinator cannot cook the food. Facts. And make sure that there's enough food for the guests, because I personally would have no idea how much food you would need for 400 people. That is where other vendors come in. So there have been instances where if there is a shortage of food, it is the planner that is being yelled at, which, you know, in those instances, how do you deal with that? You kind of just apologize and say, okay, you know, we're doing the best that we can, with the reality of we can't cook the food ourselves. Yeah. It's more so coordinating and communicating. Yeah. So there's a fine line, and it is a tough job, but it's very rewarding at the same time.
I have to agree. I spoke to a couple of caterers because I know I come with a big network, right?
Yeah.
I've been in the game for a minute now. So there's a couple of caterers, good friends of mine, right? They used to make, let's say the client guest count is 250 people. Mm-hmm. They make food for 250 people and they toss away so much food at the end of the night.
Yeah.
So now eventually what they were doing is for the same number of guests, they would cook food for, let's say, 200 people and gauge it, and then see how much food they're actually going to be throwing away. Yeah. And that number does go down every single year.
Yeah.
For the same number of guests, they will cook for 175 people and see how that works out for them, right? Right. When I talk to my clients, I make sure I let them know that I also will speak to the caterer, all the vendors. Right. I go out of my way to do my due diligence. I try to get my hands on a contract, go over the numbers, which are fine, but define details, right? And it's a trust issue. Yeah. I try to build my team based on my trust issues, because if I don't know a particular vendor, I'll introduce myself. Let's go grab a drink. Let's do something. That way we can build that relationship. At least an hour, 2 hours, because now I know for a fact that when they come on the day of the event, they're going to do so much more because of the relationship we just built.
Yes, you nailed it. When I talk about relationships, it's not just with the couple, but the vendor team. Yeah. Because that is the dream team for the day.
100%.
And all of you have to be on the same page. I think a big thing that has worked is also, group chats with the vendor team on the day to keep everybody in the loop as well. Yeah. And it goes back to what we talked about, communication, building relationships. And it doesn't just stop and start with the couple, but just everybody that is involved in making that day happen.
Yeah, because if there's one piece of the puzzle that's not going to fit, then it's going to kill the whole mood.
Absolutely.
It's going to destroy what you guys been building, what we've been working on for like over years sometimes. Right. Because of a particular vendor. They're doing their own thing. They're not taking it seriously. Right. They're jaded because it's just another event for them. But that's not the case. It can't be the case. As a professional, you're there for a reason. They liked your work. They're paying you good money, right? Do your best, be there, be on site, be present. Yep. And don't think it's just another gig, because it's their big day. It's the bride and groom's big day. They're trusting you.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. You're doing your job right if nobody notices.
Facts.
It's 100% how what we do works. And it was really interesting. I recently, so as I'm scaling and expanding my team, considering expanding into other cities, etc., I was interviewing somebody. On paper, seemed amazing and came with a lot of experience. And before I got a chance to speak with her, I was already planning what events I could put her on. Then we get on the phone thinking it was going to be a really great conversation. And it was a great person. But there were certain things that she said where I stopped in the middle of our conversation and I said, I'm sorry, this is not going to be the right
What'd she say?
So I wanted to understand about her experience and how she deals with the unknowns. Okay. We both know there's a lot of unknowns that come up. That is something you just handle. There's fires, you're putting them out, you do it with a smile on your face, and that's why you're being paid the big bucks. Yeah. She, in the interview, said, well, if there is something that is an unknown that I'm being asked to do, I'm going to ask for more money. And
wait, what?
Yeah, I paused, and I wasn't sure. I was trying to figure out. She was Indian.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to figure out how to ask the next question. I said, can you help me understand what you mean by that? She's like, well, there's certain things I'm told to do beforehand. And if there's something on the day of, I'm not going to do it unless if I get paid more. And I said, so how would you handle a situation?
Get paid more by you, the owner of the company, or by the bride and groom?
Well, both. If by the owner, which essentially means, it's all the same thing.
Shut up. She said that?
She did.
She didn't get the job?
No, I actually stopped it midway. And as I was stopping it midway, I didn't want to be rude, although I completely disagreed. Yeah. I said, look, I think you might actually be better off starting your own thing if that is your mantra. You might be better with your own company, developing your own clientele.
Yeah.
I just don't think you're the right fit for my team.
100%.
And I left it at really trying to encourage her to do her own thing, if like, because she seemed very experienced, but I was just blown away that
She was asking for more money because there's something that might go wrong. Dude, it's your job.
That comes up.
It's
like,
your job. It's gonna happen regardless.
Right. Like, I think an example that I could think of, when you have to set up, let's say, a guest table, and you're helping put out maybe like a guest book, and then there's an instant Polaroid camera. There's been times where I'm literally handed the box to set up the camera, and I'm like, how do I put this together?
Yeah.
So I gave that example. I said, would you consider that more, where you just have to like be on the fly, like trying to figure something out and make sure things just happen? And she said yes.
She's in the wrong business.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't have a business. She was, and I don't know where it would go. But it just, I think it just goes to the train of thought of, to be doing what we do, it takes, I think, a certain mindset, a certain personality, but it works both ways, where we have to vet and make sure personalities mesh, and vice versa. I think people that are hiring the planners and the coordinators have to make sure it's the right fit for them also.
Exactly. I mean, if you want to go up in the board, right? If you want to go up and over for your clientele, obviously you guys have a friendship, right? I have an example. There was a client of mine who had their own family issues with the parents of the bride and the parents of the groom. And we were like a few months before the wedding, and they called me and they're like, Jay, listen, we're having a little bit of a situation with both of our parents. Can you talk to them? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who, what, when, where, why, right? What's going on? Talk to me about the content. I need some more context, right? And they filled me in, and I put my therapy hat on, and I had a conversation with the moms and the dads and trying to resolve any of their issues. But I'm not going to ask for more money for that. That's just part of your job duties. You know what I'm saying? That's just normal behavior at that point.
Exactly. It's just all part of it. And you go in, you don't know what's going to happen, but with the relationship that you're building, they're trusting you that you're going to help get through whatever it is.
100%.
And vice versa.
I feel like that person that you're interviewing is always going to be an employee and not an employer.
Possibly. Good luck to her being an employee with that mindset, I guess.
I mean, good luck to her, right? I mean, any sense of the word. You mentioned that you got to vibe with some clients, right? And like all that good stuff. And I'm sure you also got to vibe with your vendors.
Exactly.
Right? Do you build your own team, or do you ask your clients to come up with recommendations for you to vet, or how do you work that process?
In terms of the day of team. Is that correct?
Yeah, like your vendors, like your DJ, your caterer. Do you pick and choose?
It depends in what part of the stage of the process they brought me on. So we do a consulting package, which would be folks that are starting out very beginning of the entire process. At that point, yes, we help with building the dream team and putting together folks that we've worked with and we know personalities and how everybody jives, as well as their processes. And then if they loop us into the whole process much later after they've picked it, then no. But in those instances, I think that's how we could potentially meet new folks. I mean, at this point, it's usually the same folks that you're working with, and you know who everybody is. But there's always a fresh new face from time to time, which is a refreshing experience to get an opportunity to work with them also.
Nice. I got a question for you, though.
Yeah.
Let's say they call you in the beginning of the whole process. Like they want to hire you from day one, right? And give you a set budget. And it's a modest budget, I want to say, and you have your dream team, your team that you go to all the time, right? Your 5 vendors, and the budget works for them. And that modest budget works for them. Done. Moving forward, you get a call from another client, and they have a bigger budget. Okay. Now you still call your dream team, like that 5 vendors that you already chose. Do you fluctuate on the pricing, or How does that work?
So actually, I work a little differently.
Okay.
Based on the budget of the wedding, I have groups of vendors because I know.
You have a tier system.
Correct.
I do too.
And you have to.
Yeah.
Because there are certain vendors, though, who have their own tier system. So for a DJ, for example, would have, entry-level DJs to owners, for example. And I equate that, the analogy I use is at a hair salon, for example. You could go in and you could get an associate, or you can get the master. And that comes with different services as well as different experiences, skill set. So that is how I fluctuate when it comes to the budget versus same service and just pricing it higher, because that's not fair. You want to make
it's
sure.
Not fair. And unfortunately, there's a lot of event planners out there who do that.
Interesting.
I feel like the bride and groom at the end of the day, they get the short end of the stick. I mean, if you as the event planner can plan a top of the line wedding with a budget of, let's say, 100K, right? And they're gonna give you 200K, save that 100K for them. Just let them know. I try to keep my clients, I put them in the forefront all the time. Like, listen, this is your budget.
Yeah.
You're gonna be getting this, and that. Your dream wedding, you're gonna be saving an extra 75K. Keep it. Yes. Buy a house.
Exactly. This is the same exact conversation that I just had yesterday, because don't overspend your money if you don't need to.
100%.
And a big part of what I do, which I'm sure you do also, is a cost analysis and a budget planning. So listing out all of the vendors. For a lot of 2024 weddings, we're starting all the way from the beginning where the venue isn't even selected.
Yeah.
And some of the weddings are very modest budgets, and some are higher budgets.
Yeah.
The higher budget folks, I start by asking them, what vendors have you gravitated towards? And I would let them know, at this point, I know what the minimums are that certain vendors work with and don't work with.
Yeah.
And they asked me, like, what comes with that? And it's really just having that open conversation. But in the conversation I had yesterday, going over the whole budget spreadsheet, there was an extra like 50K left. I was like, why don't you guys take a really nice honeymoon, put that as a down payment for your house?
There you go.
You don't have to use the entire budget. But if you want to, we can figure out very creative ways.
That's the bells and whistles.
Exactly. So it's like more understanding, well, what's your vision and what do you want to do with this?
I try my best to save my clients as much money as I possibly can.
Yeah. By
leveraging all my relationships.
Yep.
I mean, you have to,
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, it's them. They're coming to you because they trust you. And, when I speak to my clients, I let them know from day one, I'm going to try my best to save you as much money as I possibly can.
Yeah. Even with my services, which I'm sure you do too, where we offer different packages. There's consulting, and then there's day of coordination.
Yeah.
Consulting can really range for anything. But depending on where they are in the process, I've told people, I don't think you need consulting. I know you inquired about it. Feel free to ask me questions. I won't charge you for it, but save your money.
Yeah.
And it's not a sales gimmick or anything. I think a big part of it is I'm not trying to sell you anything. I want to help you for your big day.
100%.
Yeah.
I charge my clients a flat fee.
Yeah.
It's a flat fee for me to be involved in your event. That's it. I'm not going to charge you more because I feel like you drove a Benz.
Right.
It's going to be a flat fee, because I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
It's going to be me and my team. And if it's extra days, then there's also extra day fees. Right. But it's all black and white,
Yeah.
There's no gray areas whatsoever because it's a trust issue.
Yeah.
I try my best to be transparent, and it's two things I do. Number one is be transparent, and number two, just educate.
Yes.
Because they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
I
say a lot of times, I said, this is your first and hopefully last wedding.
Hopefully last wedding.
Hopefully last.
I feel like that would be the case, but there's a lot of second weddings I've been doing.
Sure. No, I know. But I say more from the stance of, like, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we've done it so many times. So let us use our experiences, our issues, and pass that on to you so you don't have to go through that.
Yeah, right? Because you've done hundreds of weddings. You know what's going to happen
right
before it even happens. People's attitudes, the weather, There's certain vendors, just different things that you can already forecast.
Right.
And that's what the client is paying for at that point, right? There's a whole saying that you're not paying me the 10 minutes to do the job, but you're paying me the 20 years it took me to do that 10-minute job.
100%. 100%. It goes to like contractors. Yeah. When people think, oh, a contractor is charging me way too much, I can just go buy the tools and do it myself.
Good luck.
Good luck, because all the experience of, let's say, like an electrician, for example, or a plumber, it's like, you're not going to get that off of a YouTube video.
Not at all.
No.
It's funny because you mentioned that about the contractor. I use a dole player as an example. Okay. Like, okay, so you think this dole player is expensive. Do you know how to play the dole?
Right.
Do I know how to play the dole? Not at all. But this guy does, because he's been doing it for years.
Right.
That's why you're paying him an X amount, you know?
Right.
The price has to go with the experience.
100%.
You know, there's so many veterans out there who charge what they charge, as they should, right? But it's funny because then you also have all the newcomers charging similar pricing, and they always fall short because they don't understand that things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And you can't run around with your head cut off like a chicken with the head cut off after at that point, right? Because dude, I'm paying you a certain number, you know, get your shit together, right, and make it work.
Exactly.
But I feel like it gets lost in it, man. Like all the newcomers come in and they're good at what they do. But the thing is, you also have to be humble to know that there's more to learn. You know,
100%.
And they don't see that.
I think that's the biggest reason why, as you may have seen over the years, as life happens, people will do it for a couple of years and then move on to something else just because the capacity. It's one of the reasons why I'm making such a process that can continue and scale, because I don't want to lose that experience.
100%.
Where, like you mentioned, that can't be replaced overnight with somebody just starting something new yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And with this, like what we're doing today and what you've started, the collaboration of all the vendors too, especially with COVID and how we've all been communicating, I think that's adding a whole nother level of communication and transparency that's building to the skill set of everyone that's here right now.
100%. Like I feel like the whole concept of the podcast, right, is to educate, right? Talking to other vendors, talk about your own, like your trials and your tribulations and all the hardships you went through to be a success, right? People don't know that it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not for the weary.
Not at all.
There's a lot of companies that come in for 2-3 years, and we talk about this. I mentioned this a few times, speaking with a few other guests. They come in for like 2-3 years, and then they make their money and they leave. There's no impact.
Yeah.
With the wedding industry, me personally, I feel like you got to make an impact.
Absolutely.
If you can, in anything at that point, if you're not going to make an impact in anything that you do, then what's the point of even doing it?
That's my motto. And it's work.
It is.
It's work. As we expand.
Anything worthwhile is going to be work.
100%. So as we expand into doing other things with weddings, like signage, for example, I've gotten comments where folks would say, this is a lot of work. Yeah, no shit. Nothing good is going to happen without the work.
Yeah.
Takes time.
It takes time. Yeah. You got to put the effort into it, and if you don't, then don't even take that first step.
Exactly.
It's a long journey, right? But the thing is, if you see the destination, right? If you see it, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. Even if you can't see what the end goal is, right? What's the next step?
Right.
Can you see the next step? Take the next step, one foot in front of the other.
Exactly.
Eventually, you'll get there.
And with that, I think it's really important to keep going.
Yeah.
But also look back and continuously improve, because nobody is perfect and there will never be something that's perfect. So even if an event goes great, one of the things me and my team do a lot is debrief. And in the debrief, we would say, well, what could have been better?
Facts.
Even if everything went to the T,
Yeah.
what could have been better? And is it a matter of adding something to a task list? So we have a massive task list. And even with that massive task list, there's things that come up during the day that you do. And in hindsight, you add it and just try to, anticipate. But looking back and thinking, what can I do better all the time is only going to make you better, stronger, and be able to offer a greater service.
Drake, there was a video I saw that he was getting an award, and I think it was an Emmy or something. But he said, I rarely celebrate any of my successes.
Yeah.
Only reason because I wonder how it could have been better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think about that all the time. I have a 5-minute rule. My 5-minute rule is if it's a failed event or a failed concept in anything, right? You could cry, you could scream, you could be depressed, you could grieve for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that 5 minutes could be anything. Could be a day, could be a week, a month, whatever. But it's the 5 minutes. Don't get lost in it. Mm-hmm. Take that time, grieve, but then you need to keep on pushing forward, right? 100%. And the same thing with successes. You could celebrate, you could pop champagne bottles all day long, but for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Because you don't want to get lost in it, because then it's going to hinder you from moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's always about the growth. You got to continually keep on moving forward one step after another. That's what we do in a podcast. I'm a strong believer in saying, what's next?
Yeah. What's next?
Yeah.
What is next?
I don't know. Well, this is season 1, okay. Right? We're going to be doing season 2 on site. On site is I'm the new director of a banquet facility.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. It's called Titan Union.
Okay.
They're still in the construction. Okay. It's funny because I interviewed with them last December, and they were under the assumption that I was going to be up and running by April 2023. Not the case.
Construction always has delays.
Yeah. April came and went. May, June, July, August. We're in August now.
Right.
The site visits over there. They're working on it. It's coming and going. But I think by October, we're going to be ready to rock and roll.
Very
but
exciting.
That's next.
Okay.
I'm a strong believer in building my resume.
Yeah.
You got to think back, where we all started. Me personally, I started back in 2001 as a DJ. And from a DJ to an MC to a coordinator to an event planner, working at my family banquet halls, Milan Banquets in Garfield, Excelsior in Saddlebrook. We spoke about that.
Yeah, I remember.
Working over there as a maitre d', as a coordinator, all that good stuff. Just building my resume.
Always.
And then the podcast came into play. So we built on this. The new role as director, building on that. Launching my event planning company, building on that, right? It's all part, it's a lifestyle.
Absolutely. You have your hands full also with
all
your little babies that you have going on.
but the things you have to,
Yes.
I spoke to a friend of mine, Lisa Marie, a while ago, and I told her about all these different things I'm doing. And she's like, Jay, you have your hat in a lot of rings out there, right? How are you going to handle it? Well, I told her it's not all different things though. It's not different industries. It's all the same industry.
It's the same.
It's one umbrella, right? But I have different hats in the same umbrella, so different experiences. So with that said, I'm just building up my whole repertoire.
Yes.
Is that the right word?
Repertoire.
There you go. We're gonna have to edit that, Jack. Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'm just building that to be a better person. Right. I do have my 5-year goal. In 5 years, I want to offer something to the event planning industry.
You already have.
There's more.
There's more. Okay.
There's more. I'm very ambitious.
I love that.
I'm very ambitious.
In this industry, there's no limit.
There's no limit.
And that is something I've been trying to mind map. Mind mapping, where you kind of just dump everything in your mind on paper.
Yeah.
And a big reason for the limitless nature of this industry is it's evolving always.
100%.
So just the other day, and not to throw an idea out there, but you know how TikTok is really popular, and I sound like such an old person saying that, but TikTok and all the trends that happen there.
Yeah.
There's roles out there for people on site specific for creating TikTok content. So that's not your videographer. Maybe it could be an extension of your videographer team, but like a wedding content creator is like this whole new niche that I'm seeing take a life of its own.
Yeah.
And it's wild that that's happening. It's something, just one of the things.
There's so many things that we never thought were going to be happening are happening. That's our reality at this point.
Right. And to not become stale, you have to make sure you know what's happening.
You got to constantly reinvent yourself.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's a fun challenge. It keeps you on your toes.
It's a challenge though.
Yeah.
You know, they say that if you're comfortable where you are, that means you're not growing. You're not growing.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. And change is the only constant.
Change is the only constant.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said about the trends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being in the wedding industry, being an event planner, is constantly new trends coming up.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself up to date?
That's a really good question. I think it's a lot of different ways. Part of it is, understanding what's out there. So there's a lot of content that you can follow. There's a lot of people that you can follow that, there could be like Bollywood fashion trends, things like that. But you also, there's trends of people that report what's going on currently.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's reading between the lines to understand where that's going to go.
Okay.
And I think part of that is having kind of that vision to say, how do I take what's happening and think about where to take it?
That's what I try to do.
Yeah.
I try to see what's going to be the newest trend in 2 years.
Yep.
Versus now, because you have to be ahead of the game at that point, right?
Right.
If you're just going to do what everyone is doing, then you're all going to be in the same particular level.
Right.
You're going to be on the bandwagon, right? Which is fine. It works for a lot of people.
Right.
But for some people, it's just, you want more.
Right. And that's why your question was interesting, because it's not that somebody can tell you what the trends are. There's certain people that can think about what the trends will be.
And you have to be also not afraid to set your own trends.
Exactly.
And to set your own particular trend,
mm-hmm.
you got to be bold.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get so much pushback.
Criticism.
All the time. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Like, being who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, I feel like I have a little bit of a platform, so I get even criticized all the time. And that's fine, because that's part of the game, right? Good news and bad news,
mm-hmm.
good things and bad things.
Sure.
It's all good. I just take it and I build with it, But you can't let that bring you down, because being in a podcast world, I mean, this is international at this point, right? People from all over the world are going to be listening to what we're going to be talking about, judging and doing all those things. I mean, I have crazy hair, for example.
I like your hair.
I appreciate it. Not too many people can pull off my hair.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Facts.
but the thing is, I have to own that, right? Same thing with the trends. If I feel like we're going to be doing something different next year with like image mapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, and playlist,
mm-hmm.
which is completely out of the norm, right? Or even the design aspect of an event.
Right.
It's completely different. We're not going to be doing florals anymore. It's more metallics. It's more chromes. It's more straight lines, right? Yeah. If it's not working today, you don't know if it's not going to be working next year.
100%.
2 years from now.
Yeah.
So if you make a statement and say, this is what's going to be happening, push through and believe in what you're saying. I'm a strong believer in that.
I agree. Own it.
Yeah, you got to own it.
For all the people that want to judge, let them. Because
everybody has to have a job.
Right. And I feel like it doesn't impact you. Like if I'm doing something and somebody is judging, how does that impact me? I'm still going to do what I want, and I'm still going to continue pushing myself.
You're renting space in their head for free.
I like that. And it's true. So a lot of times when people are really concerned about what somebody else might think, like, let them. I mean,
it's a Brown thing, though.
I know.
It's a Brown thing. Unfortunately, it's a Brown thing. And listen, I got 3 sisters. My whole family, we're all Brown. We're all forward thinking as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of interracial marriages in our family, which is good.
Yeah.
But judgments is part of it, So being like, I was born here, right? My parents are from India.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the first like in the generation.
Yeah.
So, and being different. I want to say I'm a little bit different than my cousins or my sisters because I'm not a doctor nor an accountant or IT professional.
Okay.
I'm in the wedding industry,
Yeah.
and that's different. So that judgment was there.
Yeah.
So with the family, it took a toll, I want to say, but to an extent, right? Because you gotta have thick skin.
100%.
So if you could deal with your family talking, you could deal with strangers talking. It's all good.
Yeah, I
You know what I'm
hear
saying?
ya.
And the
Yeah.
people that talk are going to be your biggest supporters at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like my dad, when I first told my dad, I'm going to quit my job at Pfizer and press play for a living back in 2001, he was like, what are you thinking?
Right.
But now he's my biggest fan.
Yeah.
My mom is my biggest fan.
I love that. I think all the people outside of family that want to talk, they're actually giving you free publicity.
Sure.
Right? Like they're taking time out of their day and giving you the space and making you more visible by engaging in what it is that you're doing.
And it's not for everybody. I mean, you're a creative. I'm a creative. This is what we do. And we're not a dime a dozen. We're not. Yeah. We're too far in between, I want to say. So we're always going to be different. We're going to be, and being in the wedding industry, being in the events industry, we talked about this earlier as well. Like we're looked upon a certain way. So now you have to own everything that you do. Yes, right. I'm a professional event planner. Yes, I'm a professional podcaster. Yes, and yes, right? I can go down the list, but you have to own it. And yes, this is what I do, and life is good.
Yeah, and this is who I am.
100%.
I think the biggest thing that contributes to all of it, though, is who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And for me, that has been my saving grace in a way.
Like your support system?
Support system. Because who you surround yourself with will push you to constantly be that more that you want. And I don't know about you. I feel like I'm always thinking, well, I could do more. Like there's more. And it goes to maybe what you were saying where you never sit and celebrate your successes, but more, okay, what else can I do? And that's just, I hope to be good in this industry. I think that's something that will help with continuing to contribute to it and keep it moving forward.
Absolutely. I feel like you need to make a dent.
Yeah.
Make an impact, you want to make an impact on the wedding industry, which is great. So my question to you is this now, how has the wedding industry impacted you?
How has the wedding industry impacted me? I think it gives me that space to be the creative.
Okay.
And I think without it, there would not be a part of me personally. Because in my full-time job, I'm surrounded by certain folks that are interested in certain interests.
So what is your full-time job?
So I work at a startup. It's a sports betting exchange.
Nice.
Yes. Actually, I'll give a shout out to Sport Trade, and we've launched in New Jersey.
Nice plug.
Soon to launch in our second state, Colorado. So anybody that's a sports bettor, can check it out.
There's every brown person out there.
Well, I hope that people join then. Sport Trade, one word. But in the wedding industry, without it, I would never meet people like yourself. And I feel like I've been able to click and have really great conversations about vision and entrepreneurial spirit and the what else are you going to do type of conversations, which really energize me from a personal level. And I think without being in this wedding industry and doing this, I wouldn't know how to access that side of me.
Especially in the tri-state area, though. Mm-hmm. The wedding industry, I personally believe, and it's only my opinion, that the tri-state industry, the wedding industry in the tri-state area is always reinventing itself and always developing because there's so much competition.
Right.
It's no holds barred.
Right.
It's what's next, mm-hmm. Who's bigger, who's better, who's going to be doing this, who's going to be giving me something that's more like different, right? Versus the wedding industry in the Midwest, versus the wedding industry down south. And again, strictly my opinion, guys. That's all it is. But I've had the opportunity to entertain and plan events in the Midwest and in the South and everything I've learned from the tri-state and to talk about that in those other regions, they weren't having it. They're like, no, this is not what we want. This is not what we're used to. I get it all the time. Well, we're not used to that.
So what do you mean, the grandiose aspect of it or something else?
Well, the overall aspect of it.
Okay.
Like it could be the DJ, for example, right? It could be the concept of planning your agenda, the timeline, right? What comes first, what second, third, and fourth. The decor concept of it, the food concept of it, right? There's only so many things as as far as the food.
Yeah.
They're used to the normal, right? The chicken, the goat, the paneer, and the vegan, for example.
Right.
Let's think out of the box. Let's get some creativity out there, right? So let's get something else that's not the norm.
Yeah.
No, they don't want it. They want to stick to the normal because it's what people are used to. And they say that all the time. Yeah. We're used to this.
You know what I hate? That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's what it's supposed to be. And I've said this so much. Who determines what's supposed to be? And a big part of what I'm doing, I've fallen into the niche of fusion weddings. Nice. I personally went through an interracial marriage. Nice. And that was only 6 years ago, but it feels like ages ago. And did the whole 2 different ceremonies and the reception and fusing the different cultures, etc. And during my process, there was a lot of, this is what it's supposed to be. And now as I'm helping other people plan and hearing you say this, I always say, well, who told who what it's supposed to be?
Right.
And why are we taking and running with that?
Yeah. There
is no norm and what it's supposed to be.
And in the same conversation, it's like, well, we want it to be different, right? Well, I'm giving you different. No, that's too different.
Too different. So with that said, and you don't have to answer as the Northeast, but what has been your favorite region to work with in terms of maybe cultural aspects?
I feel like the South.
Okay.
Atlanta, Orlando. The only reason because everything I have to offer, because I'm a personality, right? I have a loud personality. I have a big personality. So when I'm on the mic and I'm DJing, I'm talking and doing all those things, it's a show for them.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is fantastic. Look at his suits and the hair and all that good stuff, right? Yeah. It's a show. So I feel like it's appreciated.
Yeah.
Over here in the tri-state, everyone's a showmanship. Yeah. Everyone's a showman at this point, which is great, But that also lets me reinvent myself, get bigger and better over here in a tri-state, right? Because if you're not reinventing yourself, you're just going to be doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to get stale.
Exactly.
Right? So as we're pushing forward over here, constantly being better and better and better for ourselves, there's so much more appreciation down south.
Interesting.
There's so much more in Atlanta and Orlando. I mean, I feel like we talked about the next big thing for myself.
Yes.
Orlando is probably part of that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Orlando. Moving down there, right?
I have family in
No, you can't move to Orlando.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I got my whole family, my sisters, my mom and dad, they all moved down to St. Augustine.
Okay.
They're living the resort lifestyle, and I go down there quite often. I've been meeting with a lot of vendors, banquet owners, hotel owners, and just playing that role.
Yeah.
Not pulling the trigger right now, but setting the foundation.
I like that.
Setting the foundation.
It's like, how do you figure out how to be in 5 different places at once?
Dude, yeah, I told myself years ago, if I could duplicate myself, I could rule the world.
Can we maybe put our forces together and create a cloning machine?
Yes.
that would revolutionize everything.
AI is here.
It is.
AI is reality at this point.
Yes.
I'm sure we can ask Chat AI.
Yep, ChatGPT.
ChatGPT to figure something out.
Yeah. I think so.
Like even with AI and implementing AI in the wedding industry is gonna streamline everything.
Absolutely. But so that kind of goes into the whole automation piece of it. And I say it half jokingly about how can you be in 5 places at once, but that can be possible with the right processes.
Yeah.
And a big part, I know we talked about this outside of here, was about automation.
That's right.
And there's ways that you can develop your process, but integrate processes that kind of dwell on automation. So when there's certain communications, emails, calendar invites, use technology and automation
to make your life that much easier.
Exactly. Like be in 5 places at once.
Yeah.
Be in 10 places. Like with everything that we have at our fingertips today, there's really no limit to what you can do. So if you find yourself in Orlando, keep in touch. Really.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
It's all part of my 5-year plan, I want to say.
Okay.
There's so many things I need to do here first, right? Because, like you're always being bigger and better. Like, what's next, right? We talked about that. And I say this all the time, that when you're on top of one mountain, you're on the bottom of another, right? So now you need to continue growing. But Orlando and the whole Atlanta area, 5 years, something might happen.
Okay.
I'm not saying it will.
Yeah.
But something might happen. Right now, just being in a tri-state area, just building my resume with so many different things, tapping into that 1%. I'm all about that 1%. I've always been about that 1%, because you're appreciated at that point.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be marketing yourself to the middle class, which is great, now you're going to be working on a volume basis. Right. You'll make your numbers, but you're going to be working your off at this point.
Yeah.
But that 1%, is where it's at.
Yes.
They'll appreciate you more because they're paying you a good number. We'll talk. I don't want to talk about any of the numbers, but crazy numbers. And when they're giving you that price tag, they're giving you that responsibility.
Yes.
And with that responsibility comes a lot of expectations. So everything that I'm doing right now with the wedding planning, the coordinating, with the podcast, with the new role as director, it's all pieces of the puzzle that I'm putting together for the next role.
I love it.
And the next role is in 5 years.
Amazing. I think that is such a wonderful plan. And it goes to the strategy. So it sounds like you're going to do low volume, high cost versus low cost, high volume.
100%.
So it really depends, right? Like the strategy and what you have to offer.
100%.
Where when we were talking about people that are coming in, maybe more so just for the money, not really a plan to stay for a while, I think that's more the low cost, high volume strategy.
Absolutely.
Because with the low cost comes the lower experience.
Expectations.
And
that's the client, or that's the company that's going to say, well, that's not my job.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to put together that Polaroid camera.
Right.
All that good stuff. It's all part of it.
Absolutely.
Arpita, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here. This is great.
I appreciate you coming down from all the way from Philly.
Not a problem.
Do you want to look in the camera and go over all your tags, your online presence, your website, all little things Arpita?
The Little Things by Arpita.
The Little Things by Arpita.
Yes, of course. So thanks for having me, Jay. I'm Arpita with The Little Things by Arpita. You can find me on Instagram at The Little Things by Arpita.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm gonna have you come back for season 2. Great. Okay, that one's gonna be on site.
Okay.
So that's gonna be at a different location. There's new things happening for season 2. I'm so excited about all this.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, this is nice. Absolutely.
Yes.
Guys, thank you for joining me and Arpita on another episode of the Jay Rana Show. As always, feel free to comment, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And as always, I'll see you on my dance floor. Peace.